Do you know what position the American Anthropological Association takes, if any, with respect to the issue of gay marriage?
They support it.
I think it's your answer, sir.
They support it.
Do you know what the position, if any, of the American Psychoanalytic Association is with respect to gay marriage?
They support it.
Do you know what the position of the American Psychological Association is, if any, with respect to gay marriage?
They support it.
Do you know what the position is of the American Psychiatric Association with respect to gay marriage, if any?
They support it.
Are you familiar with the American Academy of Pediatrics?
No. No, I'm sorry. I am. And they also support it.
They also support what?
Gay marriage.
Do you know any of the reasons why the American Academy of Pediatrics supports gay marriage?
They see no problem for children.
Now, using opinion in the sense that you do as a researcher, do you have an opinion as to whether permitting gay people to marry increases the stability and commitment of their relationship?
It increases.
It increases the stability and commitment of their relationship.
That's right.
As a researcher, using the term opinion the way you've defined it, do you have an opinion as to whether permitting gay people to marry increases their happiness and sense of security and well-being?
Objection, this is beyond the scope of this expert report.
I think it does.
Well, let's try to break that down into two parts. First, you recognize that gay couples are today raising children, correct?
Yes.
And you believe that enabling those gay couples to marry would enhance their ability to be good parents to the children they're raising, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware of any peer-reviewed studies that have been published as to whether permitting gay people to marry affects the rearing of children?
Yes.
And what peer-reviewed studies of that type are you aware of?
Sociological and psychological ones.
And those are sociological and psychological studies published by the various associations we've identified?
Yes.
And what do those peer-reviewed studies conclude, as you understand it?
They don't detect problems, and they don't predict problems.
Would you agree that up until the last 50 years, both religion and societies have been very hostile to homosexuality?
Yes.
And that this hostility has caused homosexuals to be discriminated against? Is that correct?
Yes.
Indeed placed in physical danger, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware of any studies or analyses as to how society's hostility to homosexuals and homosexuality affected the psychology of homosexuals?
Object, this is outside the scope of the report.
I'm aware that there have been, in fact, studies.
And have those studies reached uniform conclusions?
Yes.
And what are the uniform conclusions that those studies have reached?
That being at the targets of hatred or hostility is a bad thing. It has bad effects on people.
Now, you use the term hate or hatred in your writings. And would you define what you mean by that?
Culturally propagated hostility. In other words, I don't classify it as an emotion, I classify it as a cultural force.
And I take it you would agree that there is what you refer to as culturally propagated hostility towards gay people.
There is some, yes.
Would it be your opinion that historically there was a great deal of culturally propagated hostility towards gay people?
Yes,
Are you familiar with the term gay bashing?
yes.
And what does that term refer to?
Attacks, physical attacks on gay people, or at least perceived gay people.
That is, sometimes people are attacked because they are perceived to be gay people, even when they're not.
Yes,
But they are attacks that are directed, physical attacks that are directed against people who are perceived by the attackers to be gay.
yes, as in the case of Matthew Shepard.
Yes. And would you define for the record who Matthew Shepard was and what happened?
He was a student in, where was it, Wisconsin, who was attacked by some people who saw him coming out of a bar, a gay bar, and killed. He was left impaled on a fence.
And when did that happen?
That could have been 7 or 8 years ago.
Did the defenders of the prejudice or stereotypes against blacks argue that the discrimination was somehow protective of the family?
Yes.
And did the defenders of the prejudice or stereotypes against women argue that the discrimination against women was important to protecting the family?
Yes.